And he does mention something I didn't really think about, that my Halloween ringtone just went off. Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my reacting to your BoonBoomger takes video. These are kind of the follow-up videos I do to my series reviews where I ask for your thoughts on the series in the comment section in a community post and then read them off, kind of react to them and talk about them. So let's go ahead and get started. Starting off with a real one from the comment section, Superpower Geek, who's been here with my videos for years, as well as the RR podcast days. So I appreciate you sticking with me as I've gotten increasingly more insufferable and cynical about the community. But anyway, I don't know if it's because of the lack of PR this year, but BoonBoomger did a great job of reminding me of both Power Rangers and older Sentai. I think each of the characters were well defined and had a good progression. It was fun while also having good dramatic beats. After 3 years of experimental Sentai, I really enjoyed the overall return to form. Overall, love this series and it's a good contender for my favorite of this era. Definitely echo a lot of your thoughts. You know, I think, as I mentioned in my review, I think it did a good job of kind of having its own uniqueness, so it didn't feel like a total like cookie cutter Sentai, but there was something kind of nostalgic about that classic Sentai feel, kind of comforting about it. I honestly didn't think too much about the absence of PR, but totally agree. Speaking of return to form, we got a comment here from Jaguar Active 9377. I know your brother, 9388. I'm just kidding, I don't know what I'm talking about. Why did I make that joke? I think BoonBoomger was a return to form for Sentai in the best way possible. Taya is sort of my ideal red. Competent and a compassionate leader. My one gripe is the toys. I love the direction auxiliary mecha have gone since Zyuohger. Small individual mecha that more acts so as a prop for the mecha than an actual component. I long for the days of Shinkenger when each auxiliary made it feel like a mecha felt like a milestone for the team and looked like a real upgrade when combined with the main robot. BoonBoomger has a lighthearted season that's still innovated on a base formula in some interesting ways. Again, agree about kind of feeling like a back to basics but also innovating. I don't disagree about the auxiliaries either. Just in general, I think the mecha have been kind of weird in the last few years. I think a lot of it's a budget reason. There's another comment here that I'll be talking about where I'll bring that up, but I think there's been a lot of like condensing and combining. We even see that with Gojuger, where it is kind of cool that you have stuff like the Changer being a hybrid and stuff, and the weapons and the Zord is kind of a cool idea that I could see them doing for non-budget reasons, but it feels like even with that, despite it being this big celebration, they're kind of dialing things back, and it feels like we're kind of, I don't know, budget or something. Like they don't have enough money to like have the faith to have a bunch of products like we used to. Another one here just sort of echoing some of my same feelings from Hecklin Labork. BoonBoomger completely subverted my expectations. When it was first announced after King Oger, I expected a silly run-of-the-mill series, alien invasion, and that's it. But when I got deep into the inner invasion stuff and expanded not only on the main cast but the villains in Lab 3 and 4, it hooked me completely. Godspeed, Mad Rex. He was a real one, really cool villain, wish he would have had more to do. And just as a side note, thinking about that, I kind of wish that around the time Mad Rex was around, I can't remember the name of the second villain general before Disgrace, but I kind of wish they coexisted for a time, because like I said, I'm not a big fan of the roaming homeless villains feel, but having like Team Rocket serving two different masters that were kind of different, where the other one was a little bit more of like a showy, eccentric character that reminded me of Weisel, and then Mad Rex I think would have been interesting, and they didn't overlap for very long. But yeah, yet again a comment I agree with, like I mentioned this in my review as well, but I was really happy that after it seemed like BoonBoomger was going to be a really, really stupid, silly series after King Oger, and especially when dealing with Gotchard at the same time, which very much so was like a complete back to basics from Geats, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Alright, let's get a little bit of a different opinion in here. This is another one from someone that's been in the comment section for quite a while in my video, so I appreciate you for sticking around. Crudderbutter XD. This is one where I'm going to put up screen grabs of it and just kind of discuss it, because he wrote a lot of really good thoughts here, but having to read so much brings back school anxiety of when you were like reading a book together or whatever and they call on you and you just want to, you know, teleport out of there. But basically, he's not a big a fan of the series, but he does kind of echo some of my thoughts on the negatives. Like, he starts off saying, I'm going to be completely honest here and say that BoonBoomger was one of the most boring Sentais I've seen. I thought it started out fairly okay in the first lap, and laying down the groundwork for what's to come. Wasn't anything special, but fairly enjoyable. Talks about a lot how kind of lap 2 was a lot of like snooze fest filler, which it was kind of mixed. It was weird because, like I said in my review, a lot of stuff kind of happened because we got the power up for 119 and Violet, but also it was intermingled with filler in a weird way. And he does talk about how some of the most generic filler, and I can't disagree. I think the filler-ish episodes in lap 1 were pretty good. Like I said, I think BoonBoomger had a good unique style in that first lap that made it feel kind of not innovative, but at least unique, and it was a little bit different with the way they handled some of the stuff with like the deliveries and the missions. But then once we started to get into lap 2 beyond, like yeah, the fillers were pretty generic and pretty forgettable. Like the baseball one in particular just didn't hit for me. So then he talks about lap 3 here, how the Gemba stuff wasn't as good as it could have been, and I agree. Like I said also, I liked the idea of it, but his reasoning was stupid. He does mention something that I really didn't think about to mention in the review, but it is true that it did kind of feel like there wasn't any substance a lot of the time to him not being there. And in a way, it did kind of feel like the actor just wasn't available. Like, he just wouldn't be in the episode for the most part, or would have one scene. So yeah, that was kind of undercooked. And also echoes talking about Lap 4, about how it was weird that we did go back to fillers in Lap 4, which was strange. But he does agree, I'll say that the final 5 episodes of the show were probably the strongest part. There was some good drama, and I was entertained. And he kind of says that it's going to kind of go down as Zyuohger form, as one of the more forgettable series. Honestly, I can get that. I think I like BoonBoomger a little bit more than Zyuohger. But yeah, Zyuohger is one of those series that I kind of want to rewatch it, because I really liked it at the start, but that was one that is kind of, I don't want to say fully forgettable, but it's very mid-feeling for me. But I don't know. I really appreciate your comment, man. Obviously, I read the whole thing. It's just when I have to read so much, I just get the anxiety. Even though I technically have all the time in the world and can edit this, I just, I don't know. Now here's one from Luis Quintero 7359. As stated before, BoonBoomger is a mess season. I don't mind when Sentai goes back to basics, but it feels like it went too basic with its story and characters, and I felt like it hasn't done anything substantial and was just doing side things instead of doing the main focal point, which is the Grand Prix. Some characters that I liked, such as Tai and Joe, but Mira was so annoying. Sakito barely had any presence or any development, and Shirabe felt wasted. Honestly, I see where you're coming from. I felt like BoonBoomger, like I said, had a little bit more standout than I would have thought, but I can totally see where you're coming from. And I agree about the Grand Prix. I feel like, I can't remember when the Grand Prix came in. It obviously wasn't at the very beginning, but they made such a big deal about it when it came in. I was surprised that it wasn't a focal point. And again, something I mentioned in my review is, like, I think that would have really set it apart if we focused a lap, or at least part of a lap, on that. Alright, now we have Lindsay TV and Film, another one I see in the comments quite often. I just want to throw some appreciation to you out there that have stuck with me, because I feel like I'm putting a lot of people off lately, because, just you get tired, man. You just get tired. Tired of the struggle. Another Doctor Who reference, I'm sorry. Anyway, I know the initial rumor is going to be a downgrade in maturity from King Oger, however, BoonBoomger was more laid back and humorous whilst, ooh, fancy, sorry, I just haven't seen that in a while, whilst still expanding the lore. I don't know why I got Scottish there. Whilst still expanding the lore, and got a bit darker and serious to match Gav's darker tone with Gemba's vengeance and past coming to light, and the good transition for the real stakes of Spindor and stuff. I think Joe is just rooted in a perception of police and their culture, but the actor plays it too much like a bit. Hardcore agree. From what we saw in the episodes around the holidays, I think introducing Spindor would have made the show drag its heels more, unless Lap 4 was just the Grand Prix. So yeah, I do think, like a lot of characters with Joe, there is just a cultural difference, and just in general, you can just tell from Sentai and anime that, like, that type of character, which for me is a nut job, that is apparently just revered over there. We'll never get that. But yeah, Joe's thing is, like, there were some aspects I liked about it, but it did come across just too one-note as a cartoon, whereas for the most part I felt the other characters didn't, in my opinion. I think it was in the last comment talking about Mira. A lot of people in these comments really found Mira annoying. I mean, for me it was weird because I didn't. I think that she definitely had her over-the-top bits, but I felt they balanced it well enough with human characteristics. That's not about this comment, but I just happened to think about that. As far as introducing Spindor earlier, I think that when I was talking about that in my review, I didn't necessarily mean him coming to Earth, so they had to drag their heels. I just kind of meant maybe us seeing him out in space earlier, and like he would be sending more threats, and just feel his presence earlier, because I felt that having his presence there, and then like when Gemba and Sakito were talking about his empire, it made you feel the looming threat of the villains, which I just kind of liked more. Like, again, broken record, I'm sorry guys, but I'm not a fan of the roaming villains thing, where they're just 3 guys wandering from warehouse to warehouse. It makes it feel like such a small threat. Like, I don't mind things being different, but I think when you just have a classic base where the characters are at, it just makes it feel like there's a bigger threat. And once we got to see Spindor and learn about that bigger threat, it felt like it was more of a big deal, and I just wish that would have been introduced earlier, rather than feeling so small scale. Real quick one here from, oh my god, Hayden Reviews Custom Combos. I thought that was going to be so much harder to read than it was, because there was just the most letters. But anyway, Mira was my favorite character in the show, although I'll probably need a counter to see how many times Jinbu no handle was said in the series. Yeah, I really liked that idea. I think that was actually a really, like, cheesy but motivational aspect of the series, but they used it way too much. There was a couple episodes where they went too hard on it. They put pickles in your burger when you asked them not to. You gotta take the wheel for yourself, man. Bring up that stuff. And also, just nice to see some Mira appreciation. Again, there's a lot of people that didn't like it, which I guess I kind of get, but like I just said, I felt that they balanced her well enough, where there are some characters like Joe. He felt like he was always on, and everything felt like a bit, but with Mira, I think there was a lot of like the human story rooted there. I don't know, that's just me though. Here's one from Will Fire. It says, I think it was a rock solid 6 out of 10. I was fine with Sentai being more normal again, but I think more could have been done to make it unique. I really wish it was more like RPM than Go-Onger. Would have made it stand out a lot more. Sakito does not stand out at all. If he was the Gold Ranger with blue accents, he would have been undoubtedly been the most generic 6 Ranger. I kind of agree with that. I do think Sakito was kind of a unique character when he was introduced, but definitely I think being that cliche gold or silver color especially would have made him feel even more forgettable, because I lumped so much of that in my head of like, we've just been doing gold and silvers for so long, and as I've mentioned, we've had such a problem with Six Rangers fading to the background or just becoming a bit after that. I thought the RPM Go-Onger thing was kind of interesting, because I'm now imagining a world where this gets adapted into PR, but we turned it into something darker like we did with RPM, which is just so unexpected. I would kind of love that. And then here's one from Teosin Forserd 969. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure. I've heard it both ways, even though I didn't say it two different ways. I personally liked it. It wasn't perfect, but I liked it, and I really liked how the mecha worked in such an interesting way for the mecha to work, and BoonBoomger kind of sucked. It didn't really work with the main mecha and didn't interact with the auxiliary. Lastly, Champion should have been a unique mecha, instead of a power-up. I personally thought Violet had it's niece, particularly excluded, unlike a lot of people, it seems. It was better than King Oger. I would rate it 8 out of 10 boons. I thought this was interesting just because, for the most part, like most of the comments I see when comparing it, people preferred King Oger, but every now and then I see some hardcore King Oger haters, which just surprises me, but you know, everyone's got different opinions, which a lot of fans don't seem to understand. I wanted to highlight this one just because I thought it was interesting talking about Champion, and I do wish that too, that we could have had a proper like second power-up mecha or whatever. I did like the design of it a lot, but I just wanted to bring that back because there was that idea of, I feel like a lot of things are being kind of condensed in terms of the stuff we used to get. Like, we used to get these sort of proper, like, 3 or 4 mechs. Remember when we used to get, like, the big mech at the end of the year that was expensive as hell to ship? And I don't miss the price of that, but I do kind of miss some of these tentpoles we've been getting, like, the way we've been condensing things, and we don't have as many mecha, not as many proper, like, second main mecha and stuff like that. Even missing, just as more traditionally always having a mecha of all of them together. Like, we did have that with King Oger, but then we're back to that with BoonBoomger, where it's just the core 3 and it just feels weird. Alright, those were some of the comments from the community post. Now I'm just going to cherry pick a couple from the review. Here's one from Cody Crimson that says, I bet the Grand Prix will come back into the fold in the Go-Juju crossover. Their whole thing was being number 1, why not have them involved in the Grand Prix when that was the entire point in the first place? Honestly, I kind of like that idea in a way. Part of me would just love if we had like a post-series BoonBoomger follow-up, kind of like, you know, Returns movie like we got with Tokuger and stuff, that would just focus on that and wasn't involved with any of the Toku nonsense. However, I do find that idea kind of funny. Like, imagine they're at the Grand Prix, this is their moment, the BoonBoomgers are finally going to be there, and then the Go-Jujers just show up honking their horns and win it. There's something kind of appealing about that, and I don't entirely hate it. Even though, like, the Grand Prix was hyped up so much, I kind of just want to see it for themselves. Here's one I wanted to bring attention to from Tyler Mick119. Here's the thing about the filler episodes. The people they helped remembered them, especially the kids, and that ended up being so important to the inclusion of the show. Definitely agree. When I was talking about the filler, it's not about them existing, because I do agree that throughout all the filler episodes and all the laps, you did get to see the community develop an attachment to the BoonBoomgers, especially the kids. And I think that's something the series did well, was showcasing kind of the publicity of them. Like, they became definitely known, you know, calling them the tire people, kind of playing into how silly the suits look. So I do think that was well done. So it wasn't about the filler existing, because I do think they served a purpose. It was just kind of what I touched on before in the review and then other people's comments, is the filler was just a lot of the times very generic. Started out strong, but was just very generic. But I do agree about that serving a purpose. I just wish the fillers would have remained unique like they felt in that first lap. Here's one from Jason Games 887, says, oh my god, I hope you see this comment because the Red Ranger becomes an adventure in the newest episode of the anime exclusive, and it's fantastic. I wish they had it in the source material. It might be my favorite episode of the series, even though it's not the chapter in the manga. I already reviewed this episode, but I did see that comment and I did love that episode. I don't know if you were talking about the Go Busters thing or the fact that the episode was a cool flashback. It has nothing to do with it, but I did see the comment and it was a great episode, and I thought it'd be funny to bring that up here. And also because it's timey-wimey, because I'm filming this video before I record Red Ranger Adventure Episode 7's review, or 8 or whatever it is, but that one's gonna go up before this video. So weebly wobbly, timey-wimey. Here's one that's also related and unrelated from Blueberry CJ9VJ. Hello, Dawson Rider. I know last year you did a video talked about the American adaptation idea for Boonboomger. I want to ask if you can do it again. And then my thoughts on Boonboomger. Honestly, I really loved it. I do like the suits and really enjoyed the weapons, Zords, and Morphers they have. I just wanted to address this one because I do plan on doing that. I thought about doing another one midway through when Violet showed up, but you're turning Violet, Violet! But then, you know, BoonBoomger didn't have as many big revelations as something like King Oger or other series I've done in the past where I've done midway points. So I do plan on doing that. I've been slowly kind of in my head working on expanding my adaptation idea to incorporate the rest of the series, I actually have the King Oger adaptation video already done, and it's just private and ready to go up for a rainy day. But yes, I am planning on doing that at some point, probably in the next month or two. Here's one that really didn't care for the series, for Cheat Shop 224. In my opinion, I gave the series a 5 out of 10. The show feels really like a random mess, like they never really take themselves seriously. Also, one of the people that just did not seem to like Mira at all, which I guess I totally get, but I'll have to disagree just because I felt like they took themselves more seriously than I thought they were. Maybe that's just because, I don't know how I'd feel if like the setup was different in terms of my perception, but I think I was just so ready for this to be a just dumb series that I was surprised that they actually could take themselves seriously, at least in my opinion. Alright, we're going to end off with another GOAT of the comment section, the Arceus for the win, I think that's how you say it, I'm pretty sure, but another commenter that's stuck around. Really appreciate always seeing your thoughts. This is another one where I'm going to bounce around a little bit because there's a lot to read and I get anxious, but I'll put up screen grabs for sure. Let's just start off with it though. The series is just great. Again, like with Gotchard, it might have been recency bias because it's the first Sentai I watched from beginning to end while fresh. Again, the series that I watched from beginning to end where most of the stuff subbed or on Tubi and DVD. While it was fresh, I fell off after the first few episodes, and even with King Oger I only kept consistently during the first half of the show, but it's all rather unique in terms of Sentai. The story had ebbs and flows, with Mad Rex, pretty standard in terms of Sentai fare, was overall a fun ride. Lap 2 Cannonborg, apart from Sakito making an appearance again, felt like mostly filler. The Disgrace arc was its peak, a lot of the Gemba stuff felt very compelling, and the final app was a mixed bag, mainly because of the point where Spindor makes his move. Yet it felt like until we got to the handful of episodes, I spent most of the arc doing filler. Yeah, I agree, that was just so weird, I brought that up multiple times. As far as the crossovers, on one hand I was hyped to see Sosuke again because Goanji was the first Sentai I ever watched, very close to me, with Geki Ranger being my first one. Tokyuja crossover was great because it played in the Gemba's arc, but then you have the Gokaiger crossover and Speedo randomly returning, and the fact that these random crossover episodes offer the Robo Universe line. And I guess because you need to celebrate the Tokyuja 10th anniversary. Do you really need to, though? You could just tweet out, hey, happy anniversary. The obligatory Gokaiger crossover appearance for the 50th anniversary. And just the shameless marketing took me out of it a bit. I know Sentai is a half-hour toy commercial, but it's just shameless even for Sentai standards. Granted, it's not as gratuitous as the Legend arc. I agree, like, that's the thing is, like, when I think about that and talk about it, I feel like I'm arguing with myself, because Sentai very much is a toy commercial, but also, like, there are times when you can feel it more than others, and I think finding out it was for Robo Universe specifically took me out of it more after that. And yet again, I said this before, but we're like a year away. Like literally the next season, you're doing so much stuff with robots, you could have just waited. Also echoes my statements about maybe saving it for like a V-Cinema type thing or a Tokusatsu fan club thing. Talking about the characters a little bit, Taya was a very unique Red Ranger because he was a very unique type of red compared to the usual brand of always-on chug 50 Red Bulls type. Even characters like Daigo, Lucky, or Tyro, while they were chatted, they were still very in-your-face bombastic characters. He was very cool, chatted flair to him, almost like Ace levels, but the whole shtick of delivering dreams had more weight to it compared to the usual pseudo-inspirational world salad of protecting friendship and smiles. Definitely agree about that. I thought Taya was so refreshing. Yet again, I expected us to have the absolute most on all the time red, and I was pleasantly surprised by how balanced it was. Now I just want to highlight what he says about the villains here. To the villains, the Hash Aliens were unique, being kind of more of like a space mafia as opposed to your like standard evil empire, and the way they dominated during the final arc via soft power and propaganda tactics as opposed to an outright invasion was very unique. Again, very much agree with that. Three goons have to be some of my most favorite Toku villains overall next to the Abyssal Sisters. They're pretty much the same boat as a quirky mini squad in the same pair as Team Rocket, Rubber Robo Gang, Peel Off Gang, Doroboro Gang, etc. But they were still endearing. They also reminded me of the Bozarks and the Gyark Ministers. They had a real sense of camaraderie. It's interesting about Team Rocket, because I think the series did a lot of work to get you to care about them, and I always felt just right in the middle. Like, they never really fully annoyed me, but I wasn't fully in love with them, and I was always just curious, like, if it was working for people, and, like, you just commented, and I've seen lots of other people commented that, like, they really did like them. So I did think they did a pretty good job with them, even if I wasn't fully on board. I did enjoy how they wound up working with the characters at the end and the way they had their final resolution. I fully expect to see them in any like major way that BoonBoomger returns, be it in the crossover movie with King Oger or Gojuger or any kind of returns movie. To wrap things up now, all in all, BoonBoomger was phenomenal from the action to the music, a personal recommendation for newcomers. Like with Gotchard, it was also a bit of a comfort show to help me escape a lot of my negative thoughts, and while I'm in a much better place emotionally now, I'll never forget this show and always strive to take the wheel for myself. That's a nice little note to end it on. I do remember your comment about saying how, you know, I was very negative on Gotchard, about how you said that like it was a comfort show, and I think that has a lot of value. However the show is perceived, good or bad, I think that there's something to be said about shows that you can just have as a comfort, and kind of echoed my lot of thoughts on liking the series. It's interesting talking about it being for newcomers because I think that it would be off-putting with how weird the suits are. Again, just because of how weird Toku is, it just is kind of amazing to me how many people are still just so sour on the suits. Like, I get not liking them, but I don't know, maybe it's because I got used to them so much and even kind of like them now that, I don't know, I just feel people are closed-minded about that. But anyway, I just feel like in terms of getting people into Sentai, I could see it being a tough sell based on the suits, but based on the content, it's a pretty well-rounded Sentai series with a lot to like about that. But yeah, anyways guys, appreciate you putting up with me kind of cherry picking some of the parts in the longer posts just because of the reading, but I appreciate all of you that participated in this. I hope you'll participate in future ones. It is interesting though, like we did get a good amount of responses for both comment sections, but it felt like much lesser than my previous series reviews, and it just felt like in general, the last few weeks of BoonBoomger, there was a lot less interest in the series compared to usually interest ramps up around the finale era, but it felt like a lot of people were just ready to get on to Gojuger, which I was interested in. But anyways guys, thanks again, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for all my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.